In recent months, many airports in China are empty. Some are lucky to just have a few customers. At noon on September 3, 2023, Pudong Airport T1 International departure, the terminal was empty. On October 9:30 a.m. Beijing time at Daxing Airport, the place is so empty it is like a zombie apocalypse. Chinese airport has been truly empty recently. Wonder what happened to China that caused this phenomenon to occur in the world's second-largest economy. Chinese Ghost Airport, a warning sign of China's business meltdown. Once crowded with travelers and commerce now, many airports in China have become a sobering symbol of the challenges facing China's economy and business environment. As stores stand empty and flights grounded, the hushed terminals foreshadow wider troubles on the horizon. Pudong Airport looks so deserted. Of course, this airport is lucky that it still has travelers. The withdrawal of major international companies across the nations has set off alarm bells on multiple fronts. According to a survey conducted by the European Union Chamber of Commerce in China, 1 in 10 companies in the survey said they have shifted investments out of China, while another 1 in 5 are delaying or considering doing so. Big companies like Gallup and Vanguard Group are also fleeing China. Not to mention, in October 2023, the overall level of international flight capacity in China's aviation industry was 54.7% of the pre-epidemic level, meaning that compared to prior to the epidemic that happened in 2019, almost half the flights that leave or come to China have been cut off. Of course, Chinese propaganda will say the situation is recovering, but it is almost 4 years. Yet, all these videos of empty airports are just in recent months. This mass business exodus is bringing increased unemployment, supply chain disruptions, and declining fortunes in related industries. Especially in the youth where unemployment rate is so high, even the CCP has stopped publishing the actual figure. Behind the retreat of foreign firms lie a thicket of strict regulations. With the CCP obsessed with catching spies, now they enact 24 measures to keep foreign capital from running away, but to no avail. Intensifying geopolitical tensions between China and the U.S. have also unsettled multinationals. Meanwhile, across other key industries, the exits continue apace. Machinery Corporation ABB transferred manufacturing valued at $277 million out of China this year, after fruitless years attempting to gain traction in the Chinese market. Home rental platform Airbnb also withdrew its listings business. Gaming giant Blizzard announced the closure of its Chinese servers after 25 years amid tightening content restrictions. And policy obstacles have dashed the hopes of entering Chinese markets for brands as big as Epic Games, despite heavyweight backers like Tencent. Onerous speech policies and data security demands impose continuous strains on international firms accustomed to operating more freely abroad. After LinkedIn drew fire for censoring politically delicate user posts at the Chinese authorities' behest, the career networking platform this year shut down its Chinese jobs portal. As storm clouds encircle the Chinese economy, the vacant corridors of Shanghai's International Gateway reflect a business climate growing more inhospitable. With foreign investors increasingly on edge, the runway ahead looks to be a bumpy one. Big pharmas migrate manufacturing to India's more flexible market. Pharmaceutical giants long reliant on China's contract drug makers have also grown wary of concentrating their supply chains to this degree. As U.S.-China relations fray, Western governments are prodding companies to diversify operations beyond China. India's more flexible oversight of drug producers has made it an attractive alternative for big pharmas like Gonthera. Major international pharmaceutical companies are radically reducing their reliance on China's vast contract drug maker industry, increasingly perceiving India as offering a more stable and nurturing environment for production. Seeking to mitigate the risks of concentrating supply chains in China, big pharmas like Xi'an Therapeutics are actively exploring alternative manufacturing bases. India clearly appears as an appealing substitute, with contract development and manufacturing organizations, CDMOs, touting not only lower expenses but quicker turnaround times in delivering medicines to market. Citing concerns over China's stringent regulatory climate and uncertain geopolitics, pharmaceutical executives predict a major shift away from Chinese CDMO dominance when contracting formulation and ingredients manufacturing. U.S. brokerage. Jefferies reports drug giants now rarely issue requests for proposals, RFPs, to China's CDMOs as price no longer overrides supply chain security. India's more relaxed oversight and policies provide fertile ground for growth in contract drug production, as Western governments advise pharmaceuticals to diversify away from perceived over-reliance on China. Eager to court global big pharmas, major Indian CDMOs are logging surging revenues as drug manufacturing migrates from China. Say Life Sciences reports almost doubling its manufacturing capacity since 2019. And is set to add another 25% in the next year to meet growing demand tied to the China exodus. Competitors also posted strong profit jumps in the last financial quarter. These nimble Indian manufacturers are pitching their services better than China, offering to serve as secondary production sites alongside reduced Chinese capacity. But increasingly, big pharmas are choosing India as the principal manufacturing location when launching new products. Piramal Pharma Solutions reports big pharma clients now asking to fully integrate supply chains within India, sourcing all raw materials domestically rather than from China. While currently dependent on China for around 15% of active ingredients and chemical building blocks, Indian CDMOs are working to cut imports and achieve self-sufficiency. With China losing its grip on global pharmaceutical production, India's CDMOs are primed to capture dominant market share over the coming years. Freed from overexposure to China's stringent business climate, big pharma's migrating manufacturing may fuel India's rise as the world's medicine factory. LinkedIn's failed localization efforts lead to withdrawal from China. Professional networking platform LinkedIn, owned by Microsoft, recently announced the closure of its localized Chinese platform LinkedIn Career after years of attempting to gain a foothold in the challenging Chinese market. LinkedIn first entered China to much fanfare in 2014, being one of the only major Western social media platforms to establish an official presence in the country. However, right from the start, LinkedIn struck compromises on censorship, deleting posts by users in China and abroad that contained content deemed sensitive by Chinese authorities. These early censorship actions drew heavy public criticism in Western media. Over the following years, LinkedIn continued attempts to grow its user base and compete with domestic networking platforms like Boss Xi'an by tailoring products to local needs. However, the company struggled against regulatory headwinds as Chinese authorities tightened control over internet content. Demands grew for LinkedIn to restrict more speech on its global platform. By 2021, growth was sputtering. Strict speech laws stifled LinkedIn's networking and communication features. The platform's revenue from China remained at around 1% of worldwide totals, even after nearly a decade of operations targeting the market of 1.4 billion people. In the end, LinkedIn likely found that compromising founding principles around speech, transparency, and open communication was too high a price to pay for continuing its localized presence in China. Facing external criticism, sluggish growth, and rising domestic alternatives, the company decided to scale back offerings to jobs-only search before eventually shutting down entirely. LinkedIn's withdrawal stands as a cautionary tale of the sacrifices global internet firms must weigh to operate in authoritarian states. Tailoring products to appease state censors may neither guarantee market share nor assuage offended users and regulators elsewhere. After years of struggling to tread this line, LinkedIn finally chose to step back across it. China's electric vehicle boom has also battered foreign automakers like Mitsubishi, ending decades-long joint ventures as sales dwindle. Mitsubishi Motors forced out of China's rigged auto market. Japanese automaker Mitsubishi Motors will cease operations in China by 2023 after over 30 years in the country, withdrawing in the face of China's protectionist policies, regulatory pressure, and heavily manipulated auto market. Mitsubishi struggled to compete as China stacked the deck in favor of domestic electric vehicle makers through subsidies, data sharing requirements, joint ventures that enabled technology theft, and upcoming bans on foreign gasoline models. With the market grossly distorted against international companies, Mitsubishi's once strong sales plummeted. By 2022, volumes had crashed to 1/5 of their peak as Chinese consumers were steered towards national champions. Unable to overcome the systematic forces tilting the playing field, Mitsubishi had no option but to retreat. It will shutter manufacturing and hand its China joint venture to state-owned Xi'an in a humiliating surrender of assets. Mitsubishi's ousting makes clear that China's rhetoric of opening doors to foreign business is nothing but superficial pretense. In strategic industries like autos, the government machinery works covertly but decisively to eliminate true competition. Through an elaborate framework controlling market access, credit, regulations, and consumer choice, Beijing ensures victory for its preferred domestic players, despite their technological deficiencies. After being subjected for years to the full onslaught of China's protectionist industrial arsenal, Mitsubishi ultimately fell victim. The company serves as cautionary example that foreign auto firms are welcome in China only until they become enough of a threat. Then the establishment sweeps them ruthlessly from the board, abandoning notions of fairness in pursuit of self-sufficiency at any cost. Gallup polling exits China, citing scrutiny and regulations. Gallup, one of the world's best-known polling and analytics firms, announced in November 2023 its decision to cease operations in China after 3 decades in the country. Gallup will close its offices in Beijing, Shanghai, and Shenzhen. The company said China's tightening economic and regulatory environment had made business conditions increasingly difficult over recent years. In particular, Gallup's core work gauging public opinion faced intensifying scrutiny under China's strict publishing laws. Gallup first entered China in 1993 to provide consulting and training services for domestic corporations and institutions on areas like business strategy and positioning. However, the company struggled to carry out polling on societal attitudes and policy issues, traditional staples of Gallup surveys globally. In recent years, Chinese security agencies have hardened stances towards research entities regarding the transmission of data to foreign firms as potential national security threats. The space for foreign polling narrowed further as new counter-espionage regulations took effect, aiming to keep information classified secret. Gallup drew negative attention in China for global surveys that depicted worsening perceptions and approval of the country abroad, including a March 2023 poll showing China's favorability among Americans reaching new historic lows at 15%. Unable to fulfill its core mission of measuring public opinion under the socio-political climate, Gallup leadership elected to withdraw entirely rather than maintain limited business-centric operations. As economic growth slows, more foreign consultancies and services companies may find regulations inhibitive for global business models dependent on data flows and measuring impact. Gallup's abandonment of China underscores the control state authorities wield in restricting visibility into views that leadership may deem unfavorable. The recent developments in China, highlighted by the eerily empty airports and the retreat of international businesses, paint a concerning picture of the nation's economic state. The stringent regulations and growing geopolitical tensions have triggered a significant exodus of foreign firms, signaling a profound shift in China's position as a global business hub. This mass departure isn't just a temporary fluctuation, it's a red flag pointing to deeper, systemic problems within the Chinese economy. China's inflexible approach to data security, speech policies, and its regulatory framework is increasingly incompatible with the operational needs of international companies. This rigidity, contrasted with the emerging appeal of other markets like India, is reshaping global manufacturing and trade dynamics. Businesses are actively searching for more predictable, business-friendly environments, leading to a redistribution of global economic influence.